Welcome to Oxfordshire Community Church's Safeguarding Training. Thank you for giving up your time to attend this training. This is Tier 1 and will be followed by a webinar for Tier 2, after which you will have completed your training. Let's start with the words of Proverbs 31:8, which shows that safeguarding is part of God's heart for his people. It says, "Speak out on behalf of the voiceless and for the rights of all who are vulnerable." In our roles as workers in Oxfordshire Community Churches, as staff members or volunteers, we recognise that safeguarding is very important. It affects everybody. The welfare of everyone is paramount, especially children and adults at risk. We want all people to be protected regardless of their characteristics, whether that's age, disability, gender, race, religious belief or sexual orientation. Everyone has the right to equal protection from all types of harm or abuse. Every child and young person has the right to live in an environment that is free from abuse and neglect. We also have a responsibility to protect our staff members and volunteers through safe working practices. Safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. Those employed and volunteers, temporary or permanent, anyone in any capacity who is aware of that abuse or neglect is taking place or suspects that it has a responsibility to take action. Every organisation has a safeguarding policy. You should have OCC's one when you signed up to the training. It's on our website and the safeguarding statement should be on display at every church. Also, be aware of statutory policy. Working Together to Safeguard Children 2023, HM government guidance says voluntary charity, social enterprise and private sector organisations and agencies play an important role in safeguarding children through the services they deliver. As with all organisations that work with vulnerable groups, OCC has the following safeguards: a safeguarding policy, safeguarding handbook of procedures, procedures for dealing with suspected or disclosed abuse, and a safer recruitment policy. These can all be found on the OCC website as part of our policy and handbook. Each church has a safeguarding statement to display with the name and contact details of the local safeguarding champion. So, some learning outcomes. By the end of this training, you should be able to define the main types of abuse and recognise the signs and symptoms, know how to respond if a safeguarding disclosure is made to you, and thirdly, know how to share information with the charity safeguarding team and why that's important. In Tier 2, you'll learn more about the specifics of the OCC safeguarding policy and the procedures as outlined in the safeguarding handbook. You will know how to keep yourself safe and others while working in OCC activities. So, what is safeguarding? Safeguarding children relates to the action taken to promote the welfare of children and protect them from harm before it occurs. It is the protecting children from maltreatment, preventing the impairment of children's health or development, ensuring that children grow up in circumstances consistent with the provision of safe and effective care, taking action to enable all children to have the best chances in life. Safeguarding adults is person-centred, meaning the adult's well-being is promoted. Their views, wishes, feelings and beliefs are fully taken into account when deciding on action to be taken. Their right to live is in safety, free from abuse, misuse and neglect is protected. We often talk about safeguarding as being like a jigsaw puzzle. Your experience as a volunteer or staff member could be the missing piece in someone's story. Some abuse is disclosed, some is suspected through how people behave. So as you go about your work and serve in different ways, keep your eyes and ears open, and please report anything that concerns or worries you. Even a small observation might be the key to a bigger part of the picture that helps protect someone at risk of harm. Let's start with the story of a little girl, Victoria Climbié. Many of you will have heard of her. She moved here from another country with her auntie and settled in London. Unfortunately, this little girl died in the year 2000. She had horrific injuries. She was beaten, she was not cared for, she was locked up, and terrible, terrible things happened to her. I'm not sharing this to make you feel sad, but to help explain what went on. Here are all the different people who were working with or knew of this little girl. As you can see, so many people were involved in Victoria's life. Nurses, hospital staff, not just one church but two churches, various schools, social workers, and the police, and many more. All of these people were raising concerns. All of these people saw things, but it wasn't until the taxi driver, highlighted in yellow, stepped in that something significant happened when Victoria got into that taxi. She got into that taxi with her auntie. The driver looked at her and decided he wasn't going to take her where her auntie wanted her to go. Instead, he drove her directly to the hospital. It was there several hours later that Victoria died. We show this slide to highlight the importance of sharing information. It's not gossiping, it's passing on the information that is crucial in building up the bigger picture, like we talked about with the jigsaw analogy. After her death in 2000, there was a public inquiry called the Lord Laming Review. As a result, every local authority was required to form a children's board and an adults board so that information could be shared. We are under the Oxfordshire Safeguarding Children's Partnership, and the three lead safeguarding partners of Oxfordshire County Council, Thames Valley Police and Integrated Care Board, Buckingham, Oxfordshire and Berkshire West. You can find out more about their work on their website, oscp.org.uk. Here are various pictures of people who live in the UK. They look like ordinary, everyday people, people you might bump into in the street. Some of them are teachers, some are head teachers, others are nursery workers or carers. But the one thing they all have in common is this: every one of them has been convicted of abusing children. We're showing this to remind you that abusers can look like anyone and everyone. It's so important that we don't make assumptions, like thinking it's only men or only women or any other stereotype, or couldn't be someone that we know. Anyone can abuse children, including other children. That's why we all need to keep our eyes open. That's what this training is about, asking us to open our eyes and be alert. We want to make sure that all children, all young people, and all adults at risk are looked after and cared for properly. You may have heard of other cases in the news, for example, Jasmine Beckford, Baby P, Daniel Pellock. These children were starved, beaten and maltreated by family members. Sadly, these things still take place today. We must keep the children at the centre of our work and not be frightened to raise concerns.
In this section, we're going to focus on understanding abuse in children. There are four main types of abuse. While other child abuse occurs, they usually fit under one of the four main categories, which are physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, and sexual abuse. In the church, we also need to be aware of spiritual abuse. We're now going to look at each of these in more detail and what some of the signs and symptoms are to look out for that would need to be reported. Physical abuse. This may involve hitting, shaking, throwing, poisoning, burning, scalding, drowning, suffocating, or otherwise causing physical harm to a child. Physical harm may also be caused when a parent or carer fabricates symptoms of or deliberately induces illness in a child. Abuse is not only adult to child, it can also be child on child. We need to be able to distinguish between accidental injury and abusive injury. Here are some diagrams of typical accidental injuries and where you might expect to see them. It's quite easy to get injuries on the forehead, nose, chin, palms of the hand, elbows, knees or shins. If you trip, you often automatically put your hands out, so your hands, knees and shins take the impact. If your hands are in your pockets, your face might take more of the injury. A way to remember this is that it's easy to accidentally injure sticky outy parts of the body. Here are some typical abusive injuries, places where you're unlikely to accidentally injure yourself, or the sticky-inny bits. If you see injuries here, you may want to report a concern. For example, injuries to soft tissue, the triangle between the ear, neck and jaw as shown on the diagram, the forearms if they've been raised to protect oneself, the chest or abdomen, the groin or genital area and inner thigh, soles of the feet, any injury that doesn't fit the explanation, or any untreated injuries. Emotional abuse is the persistent emotional ill treatment of a child, which causes severe and long-lasting adverse effects on the child's emotional development. It may include some of the following: telling a child that they're worthless, unloved or inadequate, valuing them only insofar as they meet the needs of another person, not giving the child the opportunity to express their views, deliberately silencing them or making fun of how they speak or communicate, imposing age or developmentally inappropriate expectations, overprotection, limiting exploration or learning, preventing the child from participating in normal social interaction, seeing or hearing the ill treatment of another, serious bullying, including cyberbullying, causing the child to feel frightened or in danger, exploitation or corruption. Some level of emotional abuse is involved in all types of maltreatment of a child, although it may occur alone. Signs that may indicate a child is being emotionally abused are a lack of self-confidence or self-esteem, sudden speech disorders, self-harming, including eating disorders, drug, alcohol or solvent abuse, a lack of empathy, including cruelty to animals, concerning interactions between a parent or carer and a child, for example, excessive criticism of the child or a lack of boundaries, change in the language of the child, portraying themselves as worthless or expressing other sentiments which have been spoken over them. Neglect is the persistent failure to meet a child's basic physical and/or psychological needs, which is likely to result in serious impairment of the child's health or development. Neglect may begin during pregnancy, for example, as a result of maternal substance abuse. After a child is born, neglect may involve a parent or carer failing to provide adequate food, clothing or shelter, protect the child from physical or emotional harm or danger, ensure adequate supervision, ensure access to appropriate medical care or treatment. Signs that may indicate a child is living in a neglectful situation include excessive hunger, poor personal hygiene, frequent tiredness, inadequate clothing, frequent lateness or non-attendance at school, untreated medical problems, poor relationships with peers, compulsive stealing or scavenging, rocking, hair twisting and thumb sucking, running away, loss of weight, being constantly underweight or weight gain or being excessively overweight, low self-esteem or poor dental hygiene. Sexual abuse involves forcing or enticing a child to take part in sexual activities, not necessarily involving a high level of violence, and whether or not the child is aware of what is happening. Sexual abuse may include contact activities, for example, assault by penetration, non-penetrative acts, e.g. masturbation, kissing, rubbing or touching outside of clothing. Non-contact activities could be involving children in looking at or producing sexual images, watching sexual activities, encouraging children to behave in sexually inappropriate ways, grooming a child in preparation for abuse, including online. Sexual abuse is not only committed by adult males. Women can also commit sexual abuse, as can other children. There are some signs that may indicate a child is being sexually abused. They might show overly sexualised behaviour, demonstrate emotional distress, or show changes in usual behaviour and relationships. There may also be physical signs which may be linked to the emotional impact of abuse. They may seek to make themselves unattractive to their abuser, e.g. gaining weight, wearing baggy and dull clothes, or dressing in a way that is inappropriately over-sexualised for their age. Their speech may reflect the sexual language that they're hearing. Also, look out for the behaviour of the people around the child. Are they normalising inappropriate and sexual behaviours, developing an overly exclusive relationship with the child, or controlling both children and adults in the family and their relationship with others? Spiritual abuse is not currently covered by statutory definitions, but it is a real concern, both within and outside of faith communities, including churches. Aspects of spiritual abuse may overlap with other categories, like emotional or physical abuse, for example, in forced healing rituals. Harm can be caused by the inappropriate use of religious belief or practice. This can include misuse of authority or leadership, excessive or punitive discipline, oppressive teaching, obtrusive or forced healing and deliverance ministries or rituals. If this kind of behaviour becomes harmful, it must be referred for investigation and dealt with in cooperation with statutory agencies. Other forms of spiritual harm may include denial of the right to faith or the opportunity to grow in the knowledge and love of God. Children require careful teaching, supervision and mentoring from those entrusted with their care to prevent harm of this nature. With adults, spiritual abuse could include lack of freedom with finances or in decision-making unless run past another member of the church to gain permission.
We'll now move on to look at adult safeguarding. Adult safeguarding means protecting an adult's right to live in safety, free from abuse or neglect. It applies to adults aged over 18 who have care or support needs, whether or not the authority is meeting any of those needs, are experiencing or at risk of abuse or neglect and exploitation, as a result of those needs are unable to protect themselves against abuse or neglect, including the risk of it. It applies whether the adult has the ability to make independent decisions, also called mental capacity, or not. There are 6 key principles from the Care Act for adults at risk. They are empowerment, decisions are person-centred and outcomes-focused, protection, support and representation for those in greatest need, prevention, preventing harm and abuse is a primary objective, proportionality, aiming for the proportional and least intrusive response which is appropriate to the risks, partnerships, creating local solutions through services working together, and accountability, being accountable and having transparency in delivering safeguarding. The Oxfordshire Safeguarding Adults Board, OSAB, is a group of statutory, private, voluntary and independent organisations across Oxfordshire who work together to empower and protect some of the most vulnerable members of our community. You can find out more on their website osab.co.uk. Supporting adults means helping them to achieve the outcome that they want. It is person-centred. Adult safeguarding aims to reduce the risk of experiencing abuse and neglect, prevent harm caused by abuse and neglect, stop abuse or neglect wherever possible, Safeguard adults in such a way that supports them in having control and making choices about how they want to live. And provide accessible information and support to help individuals understand the different types of abuse, how to stay safe, and raise a concern about the well-being or safety of an adult. The Care Act 2014 guidance outlines 10 forms of abuse for adults at risk. They are physical abuse, domestic abuse, modern slavery, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, neglect and acts of omission, self-neglect, financial abuse, organisational abuse, and discriminatory abuse. Further information and how to recognise these signs of abuse are in the Policy Handbook, Annex 2. The Mental Capacity Act 2005 protects people who may not be able to make their own decisions. It helps us balance independence and protection. Someone might lack capacity, for example, because of a brain injury or a mental health problem, a learning disability, dementia, or illness. Someone lacking capacity cannot do one or more of the following things: understand information given to them about a particular decision, retain that information long enough to be able to make the decision, weigh up the information available to make the decision, or communicate the decision. Capacity to make decisions can be affected on either a temporary or a permanent basis. For example, a person with a learning disability may lack capacity to make major decisions, but they can decide what they want to eat or wear or do each day. A person with a mental health problem might be unable to make decisions when they're unwell, but can at a different time when they are well. And a person with dementia is likely to lose the ability to make decisions as it gets more severe. The Prevent agenda aims to intervene early to stop people developing extremist views that support violence or terrorism, supporting those who may be vulnerable to this form of exploitation. Look out for people withdrawing from usual activities or accessing extremist literature or websites, expressing them and us thinking, expressing feelings of anger, grievance or injustice. And if you are at all concerned about extremism, please always report it. There are other safeguarding issues that we also need to be aware of. For example, modern slavery, county lines, and cuckooing, where a criminal or criminal gangs exploit vulnerable people. The most common form of cuckooing is where drug dealers take control of the victim's home and use the premises to store, prepare, or distribute drugs. To help you with the acronyms you can see on the screen, FGM is female genital mutilation, HBA is honour-based abuse, CDE is child drug exploitation, and CSE is child sexual exploitation. More information about each of these can be found in the annex of the Policy Handbook.
We're now going to look at how we respond to and report concerns. Some safeguarding concerns are suspected, others are disclosed. Here are some tips on how to respond if someone makes a disclosure to you. Be aware that the person making the disclosure may not even be aware that the situation is abusive. So it's not your job to investigate. Do not make judgments about whether or not the allegation is true. Never assume that someone else will recognise and report what you have seen or heard. And don't put your own interpretation on events, especially if the disclosure relates to someone you know. In responding, listen without interruption. Engage in active listening, for example, nodding, giving eye contact, leaning forward to show that they have your full attention. Never promise to keep the information secret. Assure them that they were right to share and you are here for them. Record what the child or young person has said in their own words as soon as possible afterwards, only recording the facts and being careful not to record your own opinions or interpretations. Take any necessary steps to safeguard the child. Phone the DSLs for advice if needed, and always report on My Concern within 24 hours. Here's how to report safeguarding concerns. All concerns must be reported via My Concern using the reporting form. This QR code you can see on screen should be on display at your Sunday services and activities. You can also find it in the safeguarding policy, plus the link will be on your local church website, the Oxfordshire Community Church's website, and on My Church Suite if you use that feature in your church. We also encourage you to save the link on your phone and computer. You should report a safeguarding concern if you suspect abuse has occurred or there is risk of harm, if a disclosure of abuse is made to you, or if anyone may have been a victim of a criminal act, even by accident. You must report within 24 hours of being made aware of the concern. If there is immediate risk, dial 999. The police are our partners in safeguarding, especially when danger to life or immediate risk is present. In such a situation, you must also contact one of the charity DSLs. Their details are in the policy and at the start of the online reporting form. If you have concerns about a worker, that their behaviour is causing harm or poses a risk of harm to a child or adult at risk, or if a worker repeatedly breaches the code of conduct, then this should not be reported via My Concern. Report these directly to the charity DSL. If the concern is about the DSL, report it to the safeguarding trustee. If the concern is about the chair of trustees, report to the safeguarding trustee. But if the concern is about the safeguarding trustee, report to the chair of trustees. Do not log these on My Concern unless instructed to. All of this information can be found in the Safeguarding Handbook. If a child or adult at risk needs emergency medical help, contact emergency services immediately. Parents or carers should be kept fully informed and an incident form should be completed. You can see the QR code for that on your screen. Ensure that yourself and other workers are safeguarded too. In your work, be interruptible, transparent and accountable. For example, don't be in a room in private with a child or communicate in a private space online. All workers should follow the OCC procedures at all times. Thank you for completing the Tier 1 training. Please follow the QR code on screen to do the end of training quiz. Tier 2 training will cover ratios, toileting, one-to-one working, social media and electronic communication, physical touch, parental consent, and much more.